Stephen Seymour, and I run a company called Marmalade HR. I work for myself, and I've been doing that now for just over 2 years. And what I am is a talent development and human resources specialist, and I work with organisations to support them supporting their people and bring the best out of their people. An example of my work would be where I've been employed by an organisation to come in and support them with human resources in the organisation. They may or may not have somebody managing human resources, or they may have a whole team of people, and I'll come in and carry out an analysis of what's happening, work with their directors, owners, senior management team, identify what they're trying to achieve within the organisation, and then set about working towards whatever that is. So that could be around the recruitment of people, it could be about talent development, it could be learning and development, it could be just HR policies and practice. You've got a CEO who's very open and driven, wants the business to be very successful, and he's got a senior management team working with him. But maybe there's one of those, maybe two members of that senior management team who are feel they're excluded, they want to be involved in everything. Maybe one of them's a little bit paranoid about what's going on, and that causes problems in terms of communication. The communication then starts to fail across the whole senior management team. And I've been working with teams like that using tools such as Belbin team roles to try and bring these guys together, get them to open up and to understand each other a little bit better, and support that with some one-to-one coaching on the back of that. I started out in the hotel industry when I lived in Ireland many years ago now, and as soon as I went into the hotel industry, it's a tough business. People worked long hours, people worked split shifts, but what came across for me was that people weren't being developed, and their potential wasn't being brought out. They were brought in, they were given a job, they got on with it, and some of them were there 30, 40 years later, and they worked too hard to not be treated a bit better. So I wanted almost to change the world and support people to be developed, and that's where my interest and love grew up. And I started out in training and development, and very much got involved in that sort of thing, and then that moved into human resources, and I suppose it's almost been a natural transition to bring it all back together and become involved in talent development and the whole spectrum of employees across the business. One of the organisations I worked with, we opened a number of hotels, and every time we opened a hotel, rather than just going into the city and stealing all the staff from the local hotel to come and work in our hotel, we developed a programme for unemployed people locally, and connected with Job Centre Plus and interviewed people and put them through usually a 6 to 8 week pretty intensive training programme, offering them a job interview at the end. And there's a few characters stand out over the years, but one in particular who joined the scheme hadn't particularly flourished in school, if we say that about him, and he came on this programme and he embraced it very much so. He loved the learning. At the end of the programme he got a job, and he very much saw the opportunity that hotels afforded people. He wanted to develop himself, he wanted to go further, and we gave him the platform to do that by continuing to develop him and give him training. And now he is a general manager within the hotel industry, and over the course of a fairly short span, within 10 years he'd reached that scope. And for me, that's what it's all about with people. It's giving people the opportunity to develop and flourish wherever they work. I think HR, for me, is a broad church. It's not just about either strategic or transactional HR. HR for me means people and people in the business, and that comes through from recruitment, inducting them into the business, performance management, development and training, and giving them the opportunity to flourish, as well as doing all the other bits about organisational development and developing the culture of the organisation and ensuring that everything dovetails and moves forward together, and the people are getting the best out of themselves, the company's getting the best out of the people, and the business is getting the best out of itself as well as a consequence of all of that. Sure, I've learned lots of lessons over the years, and the key one for me is communication, but communication within the business and ensuring that the employees are always up to date with what's happening. And some organisations are absolutely fantastic at it, but most organisations are great at marketing outside the business, but maybe not so good at doing it internally. And there was one incident which I always remember of this young lady who worked for the business for a couple of years, and she had a great future. She was a very talented individual, and she walked into her manager one day and she said, "I'm leaving the business. I've had enough here. I've decided to move on." And his response to that was, "Well, come on in, let's sit down and talk about this and have a cup of tea." And her retort to that was, "I've worked in this business for over 2 years and you've never invited me into your office for a cup of tea before. So it was a little bit late inviting me in the day that I've decided to leave. But if you'd have done that 6 months or a year ago, I'd have stayed forever." I think if you ask most business owners what their most challenging thing is in day-to-day life, they'll tell you it's the people that they manage. But on the other hand, most businesses have a very strategic aim. They've got their goals where they want to get to and the profits that they want to achieve, and they set out to do that. But then they remember that there's people involved as well. And for me, it's about merging those two things and bringing people on the journey with you to achieve the profitability and the objectives of the business that you've set out to do in the first place.